So I think that's probably everyone, and we're just about 4 or 5 past the hour here. So let's do our preamble. Hello, everyone. This is a meeting of the TAG Contributor Strategy Mentoring Working Group. This is our monthly get-together and is an official meeting of the CNCF, and so is covered by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which can be paraphrased, please be good to each other. So hello, everyone. We are, there's a couple of faces, I think, which might not know, I'm sorry. There are no new faces for me, but there may be some new faces for each of you. So if you'd like, we can go through and do a quick introduction round. Shall we start with, seeing as Jay, you just got back, would you like to introduce yourself and then pick somebody else to introduce themselves?
Kia ora, yeah, sorry, connection issues. Hopefully work with me now for the duration. Kia ora all, ko JT here, my name's Jay. I'm co-chair of the Mentoring Working Group for CNCF. Also doing some stuff the II as part of that, and have recently started with Toi Kairawa, which is a Māori Economic Development Agency, which will be using some of that work to expand some of the efforts here as well. So I think I've met all of you, but good to reconnect and see you all, and yeah, looking forward to the work ahead. Alexander, would you like to go next?
Yep. Yeah, so I'm Alexandre or Alex. I'm from Brazil, and I've been working with open source and software projects for a long time. And for the last couple of years, I've been researching and trying to find how to contribute to the community growth side of open source projects. And I'm all over the place, so you'll probably find me in other working groups within CNCF and Linux Foundation. And yeah, just trying to help, trying to connect people to other people and other projects and whatnot. So, yep. And I next, let's go with Nate. Did you introduce yourself?
I haven't yet. Hello,
Yeah.
I'm Nate. I am a developer advocate at the CNCF. I figured I'd start with other folks. I figure you all already know me. Yeah, so at the CNCF, I mostly focus on technical writing, helping projects organize and write their documentation. And of course, I'm co-chair with Jay for this mentoring working group. Natalie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Vlatko. I am the co-chair for the Special Interest Group for Documentation in the Kubernetes project. And up until recently, I was leading the Open Source Program Office at Wayfair. I'm part of I was kind of very interested in helping out with mentoring, given that Wayfair's project Tremor, which is part of the CNCF, gets a lot of mentees from the Linux Foundation and Google Summer of Code programs, and so I jumped on board to help out. And Nate has kindly asked, for my own technical writing hat to kind of throw in the ring here as well. So yeah, great to work with everyone.
Ali, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Ali. I work for Red Hat. I'm a Knative contributor. So Knative is a serverless thing on top of Kubernetes, which is part of CNCF. So I was doing the administration work for Google Summer of Code at JBoss, which is basically Red Hat middleware. So it's another community. And I thought I could be useful here as well in CNCF mentorship programs. So here I am. And Ryan, you want to go next?
Sorry for being late. I'm Ryan. I work with II, and we are focusing on conformance work on the Kubernetes community, but also helping out with mentoring as much as possible.
Okay, thank you for introducing yourselves, everyone. It's great to see you, and thank you again for taking the time not only to come to these meetings, but also outside of these meetings, contributing. It's all very much appreciated. So just looking at our agenda here, the first thing up is Google Summer of, not Summer of Code, I meant to say Season of Docs. I always get those two confused. So Google Season of Docs org applications start tomorrow. Normally, we only get 1 or 2 slots if it's a good year. But I would like, last year we didn't apply as an org. We asked individual projects to apply themselves. This year, I'd like to apply as an org, which means probably this week and next, getting together a couple of documentation projects from our proposals from our projects, just so that we have a couple of proposals available when we do actually submit our application. This is going to be like Google Summer of Code, where the applications deadline isn't as soon as like we can accept proposals even after we've applied as an org. But again, given some of the rumors that I've heard around Google Summer of Code and Google Summer of Season of Docs, we may not get as many slots as we would normally. And so I don't want to push super hard on this, but I do want to open it up and apply and go through the process anyway. And any proposal that is like turned down, that is, like, let's say we get 5 or 6, and even though we normally only get 1 or 2 slots, we get 5 or 6 proposals, we can still suggest that folks projects reapply those to the LFX mentorship streams 2 and 3. So that's something that is coming up fairly soon. So I'll open up the, I'll create the PR to set up Google Season of Docs 2023. I almost said 2013. I'm a decade behind. So that we can do that and we can get that rolling. The V2 editions, workload and PR, I'd like to push that down our agenda just a bit, because I think that's going to be a conversation. And so, oops. So let's go to notification template, informing mentees of the preferred processes. I think that has to do with a conversation that we had in, where is it? They changed the UI for Slack, so now I can't find anything. It's like I can only see my new things. Here,
you can change that by going to the
group. I will be. Channel. I will be doing that offline.
Yeah.
You can. I don't think it's so useful for you to watch me do that. But I should have dropped a link. I'm so sorry. There was a conversation we had about. Here it is. Copy link. I'm going to share that. In this conversation, I lamented that we're getting a lot of noise from people who have got good intentions, which is an unfortunate situation to have. So in a lot of our upstream issues, when we post something to say, hey, we've got people who are, we've got a proposal here, we've got funding, would you like to apply for this? A lot of folks are, instead of going through the process of applying, are going to the upstream issues and saying, I'm interested in this, or I would like to help with this, please guide me, or something along those lines. It's a very similar comment in all of that. I at one point thought maybe that there was somebody coaching people to put these messages out, but they're not particularly helpful messages, and they don't sort of explain what guidance they need or anything like that. It's just somebody's putting their hand up, but they're not helping us help them. And so I'd like to figure out a way of sort of coaching these folks to do better first sort of interaction messages. And I almost wonder if this is the type of thing that we can reach. Like we're restarting the ambassadors program, Ambassadors 2.0 with the CNCF, and I'm wondering if we might be able to reach out to them and say, hey, when you're talking with folks about new, explain that it's not just that yes you're interested. It's asking questions about the issue, or like we want to encourage people to engage, right? But the way that they're showing their interest and engaging isn't helping themselves, and it's getting in the way of people sort of finding people who are able to help in those sort of situations. So I just wanted to bring it up here. I don't know that. I think that this is maybe a thing that is better discussed in the discussion thread there. Jay has started a document that we're sort of hammering on just to see if there's maybe like a cut and paste sort of response that we can have for those folks. Natalie?
I was actually just about to mention the cut and paste response. I think on top of getting whoever would be newly or kind of reinstated as a CNCF ambassador and getting that happening, I think we would need to kind of do multiple fronts in order to kind of teach the preferred behavior that we're looking for like this.
Yeah.
Because I do agree. I definitely think it's, we actually see this a lot in open source where there's like a coaching through certain kind of DevRel-esque or like influencer-esque videos for newbies wanting to kind of get involved in open source, and a lot of it is very similar, like ways of reaching out and ways of engaging. So I think we're going to have to, on top of ambassadors helping out with this, have our own cut and paste.
I think you're absolutely right. And maybe Jay, could you? I think you're taking notes. So if you could, would you mind dropping the link to the doc that we're looking at?
Problem.
Thank you so much. So let's, unless we want to continue chatting about.
Just share the doc.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll give 10 seconds if anybody wants to talk about this before we move on. Okay, it's almost 10 seconds. Timeline proposals for LFX mentorships 2 and 3. This is a review request. If you have time, if you could take a look at this PR, I would appreciate it. It is what this is in response to some of the conversations that we've had before, just about, instead of saying, okay, here's 2 weeks where projects are able to propose things, we just set a due date. We don't necessarily have this. As soon as we publish this PR, proposals can be accepted. I would still expect us to send like an email to the TOC mailing list and things like that about 2 weeks before this due date. But a lot of times I find that I'm at a conference or something and people are excited about mentorship and they say, where can I go to learn more? And I don't necessarily have a link for the next term. So what I'm hoping to do is have the timelines for all 3 terms up and available for folks. And if somebody's got a proposal that doesn't fit in this term, maybe they propose it for next term right off the bat. And again, all the same sort of checks would apply. You still need to have upstream issues that are open, and you have to have a maintainer, but all that sort of stuff. But it's just helping folks plan further ahead, I think. So that's what this PR is about. If you are interested in social boosts, here are a few links. We've got 60 some odd proposals. So we did really well in getting projects to buy in and provide proposals. Now we need to get folks to apply. And so if you're able to, please boost the signal on these links. I think LinkedIn this is the first time I think we've actually used LinkedIn to try and say, hey, we've got this program. So I'm hoping to get more applications than we have historically gotten as well. So there's going to be another boost next week, and I think the deadline is I want to say 21st. So yeah, we've got nearly a full week. I think I'm going to ask the social folks to do another one on probably the 17th as well, just to get a couple of more blasts out there so that these folks can get their applications in over the weekend. Any comments about timelines there?
Not about this topic, but about the previous one on the people sending comments and whatnot. Did you find the cause of that? What is probably causing people to go and comment on issues and whatnot?
I don't know. I don't think it's somebody coaching them. Like I thought maybe that there was somebody out there like putting on like, hey, here's the mentorship, here's how to apply, here's all the rest. I don't think it's that. I don't think people are being coached to make these comments. It's just a very, it's a very common phrase that they use. Surprises me, but I think that it is just an expression of interest. People are interested, but don't necessarily know how to express that interest in a constructive way. And I'm trying to construct all of this as I don't want to be cynical about this. I want to encourage people. I want to help people to understand how to do these things. And but it's a widespread problem. Again, in that link with the chat, it seems like this has been an issue since day one for Google's season of code, and it's a matter of I think coaching people out of that behavior when we see it, and then showing them how best to engage, because people do have questions, right? Like it's some of these things. Yeah, so I don't know that we have an understanding as to why it's happening, but I think that it's worth trying to correct, because again, it's not help. It may actually be detrimental to their chances of getting a spot, right? If your only interaction is, hey, I'm interested, and then you go and apply and people put them in, it's like, well, you didn't add anything to the issue. You didn't show that you thought about the issue. It doesn't show that you're understanding the issue. Is not engagement. It's just putting up the flag that they exist, basically, which is not ideal.
Yeah, I guess that they're first asking to help, and before actually going in and digging into the project and actually contributing. As I guess that's a way of like not having to put in the work before for actually contributing. I don't know. Yeah.
So yeah, it's almost.
Sorry, I was about to say, I think it's even like less about contributing and more about it can sometimes feel like they're not even looking into what the project is about. It's more like, please hand feed me something a task to do, versus I'm interested in this and I'm going to read more and engage in it in whatever way.
And that's one of the other things, like when I was thinking about when I first started working with mentorship at the CNCF, I was actually working on etcd, and somebody had started actually solving the problems that were laid out in the upstream issue before they had been selected for as the mentee potentially, right? And I sort of thought about that, and I'm like, well, they're clearly interested. They're jumping the gun a bit, but they're showing initiative and understanding of the system. And again, we never want to discourage contributions. And if the project is large enough, which it should be, right? Like if we're saying these are full-time projects, then that's between what, like 350 hours and like 400 and some odd hours. If somebody is like starting and is like goofing up it's like, oh, you can't solve that because that's the whole, if they're able to solve that problem before the term even starts, then clearly that issue hasn't been scoped right. Right. So I've come to the conclusion that I'm happy for folks to jump in and actually try to start contributing to the community if that's the way that they want to engage, because again, that's, I mean, what better application is there than to say, I solved this part of it, right? So I don't know if that's necessarily, if you folks agree with that, but that's sort of where I came down on that. If people genuinely are contributing even beforehand, even on things that are marked as, oh, this is a part of the mentorship.
Do you think that that increases during the mentoring and the Summer of Code seasons?
People jumping in?
Yeah, do you think that has some role in having like?
I imagine. I don't think it happens a whole lot, but I think that people get excited about some of these projects and want to participate. And like I said, participation, like genuine good faith participation where you're trying to solve a problem, I think that should always be welcomed, even if it's on like a piece of what would otherwise be the mentorship project. Because again, like I said, the mentorship project proposals should be large enough to withstand one person doing 1 week's worth of work on it beforehand, right? To if you know what I mean, right?
I think one of the things that we've been discussing is there is a preferred way that we want them to engage, and if we use a template for the projects that we've scoped, and in the top of the issue, in the template at the bottom of every explanation, this is the issue, have that referred in the issue and say, if you want to participate, this is the process. Don't just comment, and just guiding the correct behavior. But familiarize yourself and apply in the official way, just like an appendix to every issue inside the issue.
I would
Good work.
I'd be careful about that, just because that is also a lot of noise. I'd rather, and again, I could be, this is discussions. I'm not saying do it this way. I would be tempted to have a template sort of available that if we start seeing this behavior, because usually it's not just one person, it'll be a few people. If we start seeing that, then we put the response on, saying, hey, even tag the people who are like, it's like, hey, so-and-so, so-and-so, such other person. We're interested in education. So this is what you've done, why it's problematic potentially, and a better way of doing what you're trying to do. And then it's something that we can share out to mentors through the like as an onboarding. It's like, okay, you can expect to see these types of posts on your upstream issue. If you see a bunch of them, here's a template for something that you can respond to it with. And again, each project will probably manage this type of thing on their own, but I want to build out a resource for that if we can. So just looking at time, we're about halfway through, and I'd like to have time in this meeting for a bunch of discussion around the V2, because we've got all the folks I want to talk about V2 here for that. So Is there anything else quickly before we sort of move on? Is there? I don't want to shut down conversation, but is there anything else that we want to talk about on this topic before we move on?
I think it probably feed into the V2 stuff a bit.
All right. Well,
Overlap.
Jay, would you like to lead this part of the conversation then?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I just
No problem.
lost my place. Yeah, so obviously we're still sort of chipping away at some of the V2 stuff, and yeah, thanks Ali as well for putting your hand up to support with some of the mentoring content specifically. Still got to push some of that stuff up, and sorry, that's my bad as well. I've been changing roles recently, so I've been a bit spread. But on the back of just what we were sort of saying before around best responding to mentees, for instance, just on that real quick, a lot of that I think is going to come from developing a persona. I think in terms of, I think it has been developing content things, it could be easier to spread quite wide in terms of, yeah, who are the types of people that we expect to be engaging with this sort of stuff, and how we're going to create resources or content that's going to be applicable to their needs. And, you know, we're talking about things like templates and everything, because we talked a little bit yesterday around tone and what are the most sort of necessary things to say. Those are also all things that are probably going to be on the surface that will refer back to the V2 that's going to give a little bit more you know, detail as far as information. So sorry, I had notes and I've just mixed myself up.
Just for and maybe if you don't need this, let us know, Natalie. Would you or Rion like to just sort of go over the overview, like the 10,000-foot view of what we're looking to accomplish with the V2?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. So we have been working on for the past couple of months around restructuring the current mentoring repo. Felt that the layout and everything wasn't really conducive to the needs. We've since moved that around and sort of we reorganized that as basically a mentee mentoring program, and I think it was sort of working group information. So just targeting a little bit more, like I said, in terms of supporting those cohorts directly. And since I've been developing some content to sort of streamline that across each with like topics like specific program information, support networks, understanding communication channels, and how to navigate all those sorts of things. So I've just been in the process of writing up content to go under each, and happy to share all that sort of stuff before it goes up. And so everyone's just been feeding into, or has been invited to feed into that V2. So it's some agreement before we eventually look at merging. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the primary right now, and I think I can say this, the repo's a mess. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of history to it. So if you know what you're looking for, it's fairly straightforward to find. But if, for instance, somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I'm interested in such and such, I can't like tell them a link. Like I can give them the URL to this current term, but I don't feel comfortable saying go to mentoring.cncf.io. And if I did, I wouldn't expect them to necessarily find what they're looking for as a mentee. And the same is true for folks coming in looking for information on mentorship. And so right now, everything is sort of buried and convoluted and set with all this I won't say craft, but there's just a lot there that isn't particularly well laid out for any of the people that we think would be interested in using this site. And when I say site, I mean the repo. And mentoring.cncf.io actually forwards to this repo. So like if we want like a short URL to give people, we can do that. But right now, I think a lot of this came out of a conversation I had with somebody. I was getting a suit made for my brother's wedding, and one of the people that I was working with there to do that mentioned that this was his summer job and that he's interested in computing and all that sort of stuff. And I said, oh, why don't you check out mentoring.cncf.io? And I realized when I went home and looked at what I had sent him into doing, I don't think that he would have had any idea about any of what we do or why we do it or how we do it. So now eventually the goal is also that, and we can't do this just yet. I think we have to do the work first, and then we can go to the contributor strategy team and say, okay, we've got all this information now. Can we put this up in your website? So instead of mentoring.cncf.io, it would be contribute.cncf.io/mentoring or something along those lines. So I think that's sort of the 1,000-foot view or 30,000-foot view. Is there, you have any questions around that, Natalie?
My first question is, I'm hearing a lot of what this group thinks about the site and how helpful it is, but have we asked anyone who's actually jumped into the mentorship repo themselves because they've needed to use it? Just thinking about a bit of a actual user perspective versus us who create the content, whether we know specifically the areas that we need to improve, whether it's all or specific areas, and whether we're going to possibly test a new version with these same folks as well.
To answer your first question, no, we have not. I think that's a very good idea, though. And as for testing, I'm not. I want to say yes, it would be amazing to do it. I'm not sure that we would have the capacity to do it.
Yeah, I hear that too. And I think the reason why I mentioned that user perspective is for a way for this group to prioritize that things that should get changed first, at least.
Yeah.
Because I think it's okay that we're choosing to update and improve the repo based on just what we want to do. I think that's also really good. But I feel like we may be missing something if we're not bringing in someone who's actively needed to use the repo before, or maybe will be in future. And some of the perspective, at least to prioritize the work that we do.
I would be, yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. And I think that we have got contacts with both mentors and previous mentees that we can tap for that type of thing. It would be more difficult, I think, to find somebody who's like a new mentee to try and do that, but we may be able to find some new mentors because we got more of a relationship with mentors than we do obviously with mentees. So that might be something that we can do.
Yeah, cool.
I don't know quite.
I think that would be, and I agree. The new mentor aspect, I think, like that point of view might be really beneficial. I don't think we would need to do completely new, fresh mentees, given that they're likely, whatever we present them, it's going to be possibly not difficult to navigate, but just possibly overwhelming anyhow. But yeah, maybe like had been mentees previously from like fresher or like more recent cohorts versus like an older one, and that kind of thing could be worthwhile too. I don't think any of us need to do that with like several people. Like a couple would already help in prioritizing what needs to be updated and improved first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my only question. I generally understand the desire to want to improve this kind of stuff, and I think, yeah, putting it in the perspective of this repo is useful for would-be mentees and current mentors, so they're the people that needs to be useful to first, versus the general rest of the population that we want to market this to, who maybe become mentees and mentors in future, of course. But yeah, I think having that kind of framing would be like super beneficial of just for our own kind of work and what we'll be tackling.
Yeah, absolutely. If I were to get a set of folks, is that something that you would like to drive, or is that? Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
maybe as a to-do.
And I want to call out to Rianne's suggestion in the chat at the end of the program, getting further kind of feedback and information. I think that's a really great idea, as just always a way to keep improvements coming, or like keep, you know, updates coming.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things. Sorry, that's a very good point. I wonder how much more, and I know Josh is on vacation for I think 2 months, not 2 months, 2 weeks. I think he's off starting today for like 2 weeks. But he's one of the folks that I would like to have review the V2 PR, right? We've got this umbrella PR, and I actually need to go through and do Natalie will recognize the process I'm going through as borrowed heavily from the Kubernetes release, but I need to update the V2 branch with what's in main right now, just to bring it up to speed. But we should figure out what is required for our minimum viable product on this, and figure out what the least amount of work that we can do to sort of launch this, and what window we want to launch this in, so that we can start working a little bit more iteratively. As like right now there's empty files, and that's fine. But I'd like to get the structure in place, or agreed upon, or sort of reviewed at least through the six of us, and say, okay, this is what we're trying to do, and yes, it does, or no, it doesn't yet. And then what we can do is open up issues on what like is remaining. If there's an empty file, it's like, okay, well, here's the issue for what should go in that file and why it's empty, or those types of discussions should be put in that. But I'm thinking that we're almost there, but I want, and this was actually one of the things I was hoping that potentially with your new set of eyes, Natalie, you could take a look at and see where we're at and what you think needs to be done in terms of like moving this forward, if we want to sort of have a V2 merge into main in the next, let's say, month. I'm thinking that is a timeline, because that brings Josh back. That gives folks time to do the review. I like, because it's such a big change, I do want some of the tag contributor strategy folks in, and like folks like Ihor and Chris to potentially take a look at it before we do a wholesale change of the entire repo, right?
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think I feel like this is also a really good opportunity for this group to, yes, solicit that kind of feedback from the folks that you mentioned, Nate, but also kind of solicit it as like a collaboration and partnership, because this is the group that's the expert opinion on this kind of stuff as well. Like, so
here's what we're proposing:
collaboration, not for permission, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so all that preamble aside, somebody wrote a message. Why can't I see the chat? Chat. I have to change my setup. Oh, there we go. Okay. Is there anything else we'd like to chat about? Just looking at the time, we've got probably about another 10 minutes.
I just have a quick kind of process question then with this. So we should just keep kind of commenting specifically on the draft PR itself for any kind of feedback, or?
Feedback there is fine. If there's, I don't think there are any other PRs currently open against V2, but if you've got if you want to do a contribution, target V2 on your PR, and sort of PR level discussions probably fine to happen on the PR. The big PR is mostly, I mean, we're kind of treating it like an umbrella issue, so discussions there are also fine. And if you open up a new PR against V2, probably good to link it or mention the umbrella PR, just so, excuse me, so that it shows up in the in that PR's sort of list of history, so folks can have conversations there too. And you'll notice I also tag and ask for reviews fairly liberally. There's a lot of folks. I probably shouldn't tag quite as many folks as I do, but it's the only way I know how to sort of ping folks as we're going through these processes. So sorry for the noise.
Nate, do you know the date that the new LFX platform version will be released? I don't know if we discussed it previously, but I can't remember if that was specific, some section specific to mentorship, or I guess the whole platform will get updated. I don't know if you know of any dates.
It's a question of priorities, and so from what I've heard, I think that there is no capacity to work on it in the next quarter, so the next 3-4 months, and then after that, I don't know what the priority of the mentorship platform is, and so I've been pushing internally, saying, "Hey, can we please update this?" But I do not have a date for when those updates would happen.
All right, I'm asking because of the contributor board and matchmaking idea that we have.
Oh, for that.
Yeah, and I'm slowly getting back to that, and trying to. I'm doing some research around the options we have.
Yeah, I think for that, I would focus on Contributor, because that the person who from I think it came from the TOC sort of liaison for the contributor strategy, is involved in the Contributor project. You can see, I can't remember her name, but you can see that she's got like issues opened up and requests into Contributor. And I think that Contributor is being positioned as that sort of jobs board for projects that are looking for new maintainers, looking for new contributors, and so on and so forth. So I think Contributor is probably the best place to put your energies if you're interested in that type of work. It's open. The two primary maintainers are super helpful and friendly. And if you'd like, I could do an introduction. But it's it's intended to try to solve the problem that was going to be solved by duplicating a job board.
Yeah, so you think that the best option here would be to merge with or to redirect the effort to Contributor altogether?
I think so. I can't speak for the contributor strategy group, but that's my opinion. I think that's the direction that I would suggest that we go. And I think that like I said, because this individual, I should look up their name, who sort of requested it, that's sort of like they're involved. So it's I think probably the way to go. But again, that's something I would maybe bring up in the next contributor strategy meeting rather than this one.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. I'll take a look at it, and yeah.
And it's back end, I believe it's Rust. So if you're interested in learning Rust, that's an option too. So, okay, looking at time, we got probably about 5 minutes left. Is there anything that we would like to add on to our agenda here for the tail end? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I think we're going to let you go a bit early. Thank you again for your time, not only in this meeting, but also all the comments and discussion and work outside that you've been contributing. It's all very much appreciated. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
All right, cheers.